Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're stepping into a completely grim, ink-shadowed graphic universe to look at one of the most wild psychological transformations in mythology. We're talking about the legendary Brunhilde. But, we're not doing the traditional romantic hero saves the damsel thing. Oh no, we're looking at her journey from a literal divine servant to a completely sovereign free spirit. And the catalyst for all of this? It isn't a hero in shining armor. It's something way, way darker.
Okay, let's dive into this because this is where it just gets wonderfully weird. How exactly does a demonic poodle completely shatter a powerful Valkyrie's ego? Well, in this Nietzschean reading, this poodle isn't just someone's pet. It's literally the spirit of Mephistopheles. It's this dark, contracted negation of the entire universe, acting as the raw, unfiltered force of the primal id. See, Brunhilde is completely stuck. She's paralyzed, trapped in this stagnant adherence to the All-Father's superego, those rigid laws of the gods that are just keeping her bound up. The poodle steps in to provide the sheer cynicism, the absolute agonizing existential friction she needs to shatter that fragile, isolated ego of hers. I mean, without this demonic push, she'd just rot in defensive isolation forever. The darkness of the poodle is ironically the exact cure she needs for her existential health. So the poodle starts weaving this incredibly dark, demonic vision for our paralyzed Valkyrie, pulling her toward this concept called the seventh solitude. And listen, it's absolutely crucial to get this. This solitude is not a prison, no way. It's a sanctuary of pure intellectual independence. It is miles away from the toxic rot and the failing laws of those dying gods. The poodle's vision basically corners this mechanical siren who, let's face it, has only ever parroted the songs of her father, and forces her to confront the Vaflagi, the flickering, magical flames of her own deeply repressed desires. You look into the poodle's ink-black eyes, and they're just reflecting her own nascent ego right back at her, daring her to finally wake up.
So the crucial point is really the stark contrast between these two paths. You've got the traditional Wagnerian redemption narrative, right? That one tells us salvation comes through love or by sacrificing yourself to return to those fading divine laws. But this Nietzschean framework, it totally obliterates that idea. This is all about becoming a sovereign free spirit. It's about amor fati, literally loving your fate. It's about self-mastery and just fully embracing your isolation instead of sitting around waiting for a savior. The poodle's pure, unfiltered cynicism is literally the functional bridge she needs to cross over from that old servitude into this massive, expansive, sovereign self.
To actually trigger this wild transformation, the demonic poodle lays out a highly theatrical four-act parable for the Valkyrie. Think of it like walking through four distinct rooms of her own psychological transformation. It's a full-on dark initiation and shamanic descent. Here's the roadmap. First, swan feather to flint, then cage of cursed gold. After that, the fire-ringed sanctuary, and finally, the broken spear. All right, let's hit Act 1, Parable 1, Swan Feather to Flint.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real cost of her fall from grace. We step into the first room of this vision, and the Valkyrie is just violently stripped of her swan feather cloak, her literal metaphysical vessel for soul flight. It's the primary casualty of her so-called original sin. Because of the Father's decree, she loses that cosmic Valkyrie view of time, where her weaving used to be this epic ritual of shamanic battle magic, tying past, present, and future together into one shimmering reality. Now, she is tethered hard to the gravity of a single mortal perspective. She's grounded straight into the hard flint of Midgard, the human realm. The poodle is just relentlessly mocking her, laughing at the loss of her shamanic breath. But here's the kicker. Hidden deep beneath her armor, she actually keeps one single feather. It's the flawless foundation of a sovereignty she hasn't even claimed yet. It proves that the divine can be buried, sure, but you can never truly extinguish it.
Now listen to this quote because it is absolutely electric. What does it mean to lose one's heavenly wings? It means shedding the heavy skies to finally discover the spark within the flint of the earth. He who will not endure the friction of his own solitude shall never become his own light. I mean, wow. It reads exactly like one of those jagged, punchy aphorisms straight out of Nietzsche's The Gay Science. It perfectly captures the raw energy of her coming vengeance. She's realizing that being grounded isn't some divine punishment. It's literally the necessary friction she needs to strike her own spark. Okay, moving right along to Parable 2, Cage of Cursed Gold. The vision definitely doesn't let her rest, and honestly, things start getting incredibly claustrophobic here. The poodle weaves this scenario where she ends up with the cursed ring and Varnat. And this heavy gold acts as this brutal counterweight to the lightness of that swan feather we just talked about. It drags her spirit way down into the dark black hate of the id. Suddenly, her domestic space turns into this magnificent absurdity. It becomes a secondary battlefield where she's just totally trapped by social expectations and this massive, unconscious web of deceit. The vision makes it crystal clear. To free her true Valkyrie soul, she can't just survive in this cage of broken oaths. She has to absolutely obliterate it.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we can track her entire psychological breakdown and breakthrough just through her voice, her sonic Galdra magic. Look at State 1. She's got the powerful, commanding call of the Divine Guardian. But then State 2 hits. Crushed under the weight of that cursed gold and domestic entrapment, her voice completely degrades. It twists into this manipulative, wetter speech, which is basically just used to incite betrayal and murder in other people. She turns into a silent, hollow shadow of her former self. But the vision promises a third state, the sovereign synthesis. If she can shatter that cage, she's going to sing her death song. She'll reclaim her divine voice, but this time, not to serve the gods. She'll use it to reveal undeniable, hidden truths. Which brings us to Parable 3, the fire-ringed sanctuary. This realization literally propels us out of that claustrophobic domestic cage and into a stunningly graphic landscape of self-chosen isolation. The poodle paints this picture of a magnificent fire ring. Now hold up, this isn't some fairy tale obstacle course waiting for a handsome hero to conquer it. No way. This fire is a wall of searing logic. It's built for one reason, to incinerate the stench of the herd mentality and to keep out the petty lies of the valleys below. Standing right in the middle of it, she sheds her old divine conditioning like a layer of dead skin. She is completely protected from the toxic, fading laws of the Allfather. And let's be 100% clear about her motives here. She doesn't light this massive fire to play hard to get and find a husband. She lights it to test the endurance of any mortal who even dares to withstand her gaze. The flames are her own personal self-cleansing. Through Amor Fati, she's using that fire to burn away all those weak, life-denying lies of traditional redemption. She leaves the icy sorrow of her exile behind and steps right into her great noon. She's no longer just a daughter of the law. She establishes herself as the wanderer of the heights, and she is fiercely, completely content in her own isolation. Let's move to our final act, Parable 4, the Broken Spear. Let's see how this all builds to the massive climax of the vision. Here we see the Valkyrie explicitly finally rejecting the martial order of Valhalla. She literally takes her divine spear, snaps it in half, and repurposes it into a gnarled walking stick. And as she steps through the thick smoke of this burning old world, she does it with what's described as the hard, golden laughter of the heights. That is the absolute hallmark of a spirit that has finally snapped its chains. The wood of her own funeral pyre essentially replaces those swan wings she lost, magically turning the undoing of death into the becoming of an entirely new legend.
Then, in the blinding finale of the vision, she falls upon her sword. But wait, this is absolutely not a defeat. She is actively using the hard flint of her mortal resolve to strike the spark of her final sovereign choice. She is not looking up, seeking a savior from the heavens. Through the terrifying, agonizing friction provided by that demonic poodle, she has learned how to be her own danger, her own master, and her own light. She actually survives the dark initiation, transmuting all that tragedy into a self-mastered apotheosis. She has literally become her own guide, the eternal psychopomp of her very own soul.
Which leaves us with an incredibly profound challenge, straight from the dark heart of this Nietzschean fable. The poodle had to shatter her ego to set her free. So I'm going to leave you with this. Do you possess the courage to invite that kind of terrifying existential friction into your own life? Do you actually have the strength to step into your own fire-ringed sanctuary, burn away the expectations of the herd, and truly become your own master? Think on that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I genuinely hope it sparked a fire in your own intellect.